With this video, I'll be reading out aloud a review of the novelization by Terrance Dicks of the Daleks. This is written by Andrew Fayok on the 19th of the 6th, 2006. This is Terrance Dicks. Exterminate him, the Doctor. Exterminate him. Exterminate him. But there was something different about those voices. They held some quality the controller had never heard before, and as he walked from the council hall he recognized it. The quality was fear. For the first time in the controller's experience of them, the Daleks were actually afraid. The controller telling the Daleks about the Doctor's arrival, page 80, The Day of the Daleks. Is this really by Terrance Dicks? I'm rapidly coming to the conclusion that his early novelizations for Doctor Who are much better than his later ones, with some exceptions such as The Caves of Androzani. This is such a departure from his normal work. It's filled with descriptions, great characterizations, well-defined settings, and even manages to add to the original story and give it more depth. This is quite possibly the best novel I have read of his since Blood Harvest. Terrance Dicks manages to avoid simply rewriting the script and delivers something that expands the story enormously. We are treated to an opening chapter set in the future before the events of the story as a Resistance member picks his way through a wasteland, outsmarts some Ogrons, and breaks into a Dalek control center. When the Doctor reaches the future Earth, Dicks' descriptions of the future are much better than the BBC realised on screen. The scene is described as being something out of the future Terminator. Just replace the giant killer robots with Ogrons. Dicks even manages to make the incredibly lame go-kart chase from the later episodes of the TV story exciting. Dicks rationalizes the enormous rubber tires as being made specially so that the cart can ride swiftly and easily over the enormous vistas of rubble that span the landscapes of the future. There was also an epilogue added in which the Doctor's time experiments from the beginning of the story while tinkering with the TARDIS double back on themselves, creating a humorous and startling final moment after the excitement of the real landing. The characterizations are some of the best done by Terrance Dicks. Like his adaptation of Tom Baker, Dicks captures Pertwee perfectly in all his flair, arrogance, and heroism. The Doctor uses Venusian Aikido a lot in this story and takes great delight in using high-speed vehicles to make his escapes. The Brigadier and Joe Grant are also well drawn, but due to the time period of this story in Unit's history, the Brigadier is more of an unorganized buffoon while Grant is a helpless child. Definitely not the Unit we knew from the previous seasons of the show or books. Benton and Mike Yates are also well characterized, although Mike Yates does come off as a bully as he abuses his rank to get privileges over Benton, but that is more of a fault of the original script. Probably the best character in the book, as in the original TV story, is the Controller. Dicks really gets inside the head of this character, making us privy to his thoughts and rationalizations of what is going on around him. We get to see a more first-hand view of how he evolves into the man who will let the Doctor go in order to save the Earth, possibly one of my favourite scenes of the Pertwee years. The Controller is a kind and even conscientious man who would leap at a chance to save humanity, but genuinely believes that the Daleks are too powerful to oppose, and so he doesn't try. Definitely one of the best tragic characters of the series. I, at long last, finally realised that the Ogrons are seen as humorous characters. I was puzzled by everyone's pronouncement of the Ogrons as hysterical comic relief, when all I saw on the TV screen was a mindless, non-speaking henchman. It is in this novel that the Ogrons finally gain some character, and we have Terrance Dicks to thank for it. The Ogrons are a very unintelligent race who have only one desire: to kill humans. The only thing that keeps them from doing so is their fear of the Daleks and their demands. The Ogrons come across as much more terrifying in the novel, as few weapons are able to slow them down. They have superhuman strength and can move and terrifying speeds. Definitely a monster you would not want to mess with. The full terror of the Daleks is also realised in this story. Although Daleks do appear in the council rooms, they also make appearances on the battlefields, as well as they track down the resistance with the Ogrons and the escaping Doctor. But the point of the Daleks in this story, and one of the reasons why I think this is one of my favourite 70s Dalek stories, is that the Daleks are not meant to be cannon fodder or shock troops. The Daleks are the brains behind the operations. This is still the old calculating Daleks from the 1960s who prefer to delegate the task of oppression to others, not unlike their use of Robomen in the Dalek invasion of Earth from the William Hartnell years. Dicks makes sure that the fear of the Daleks and their retribution is felt by everyone from the Doctor to the humans living in the future, to even the Ogrons themselves. Even if the Daleks are rarely seen, their presence is always felt, and you know these metal monsters mean business and will not tolerate insurrection or disobedience of any kind. The time travel aspects of this story are really what stops this from being an otherwise average story. If you really think about it, this is very similar to Inferno, only with Daleks rather than Primords. However, the use of time paradoxes and the brilliant revelation that the Grellas caused their own horrible future is what sets us apart as a unique offering from the Jon Pertwee years. The story sets the scene with the Doctor's humorous time experiments and rolls on from there to more terrifying and dangerous uses of time travel as we learn about the Grellas and the Daleks. Overall, this is a slightly above average Pertwee story that has been very well brought to life by Terrance Dicks. With great characters like the Controller, the Ogrons, and the Doctor, the story manages to move at a good pace. Despite some characterization problems with Brigadier Joe Grant and Mike Yates, which are not Terrence Dick's fault but rather the original script writers, this story actually adds to the original, providing us a deeper look into this terrifying future and makes so much more scary than the TV episode, but you are genuinely rooting for the Doctor to prevent this future from coming about. It is a thrilling poetry story and definitely his best Dalek story, followed closely by Death of the Daleks, a solid 8 out of 10. P.S. Once again, I read the pinnacle version of this novel, which is identical to the Target version with some few changes. A foreword explaining the phenomenon of Doctor Who to US readers and an excerpt in the back from another time travel adventure book series called Blade. This version also lacks the original Target illustrations. In fact, I didn't know there were illustrations in the book until I looked them up on the wonderful On Target website. My favourite is the Doctor lounging in Sir Reginald Styles' living room with cheese and wine, with Joe looking on in disappointment.